The absolute insanity continues in chapter 227 of JJK. In the previous few chapters, it seemed like it was really a back and forth between Sukuna and Gojo, with Sukuna dominating one chapter and Gojo dominating the next. But this chapter is actually different from all of those, especially because both of these insane powerhouses use brand new techniques that we haven't seen in the series yet. And that causes this chapter to leave off on like the biggest cliffhanger there has been since the fight started. The chapter starts with Kusakabe not understanding the mechanism behind healing out a burnt curse technique with RCT. Yuta says it's not impossible since Gojo just showed it, but usually it's like an engine getting overheated. You normally have to wait until it's cooled down to reuse it. And hearing what Yuta said, Maki says RCT can fix but can't cool down, right? Yuta says that's what he thought until now, but his understanding was not enough. But Yuta starts to worry that Gojo might be doing a really overwhelming task right now. So it seems like everybody's just as confused as we were in the previous chapter when Gojo used reverse curse technique to heal his own curse technique. It's something that we hadn't really seen before, and apparently something that was thought to be pretty impossible until now. We saw that when Gojo used that second simple domain in the previous chapter, instead of using it to heal his own wounds from the malevolent shrine, he was actually healing his curse technique, which allowed him to shoot a reversal red point blank to Sukuna's face and destroy the shrine. Well, the scene switches to Sukuna and Gojo. Sukuna once again uses malevolent shrine but expands it to its full extent, and Gojo too opens his own domain again, but Kusakabe shouts at Gojo saying, "Are you stupid? What are you thinking?" But our boy Gojo looks pretty confident in what he's doing at the moment. Ino wonders if Gojo is trying to repeat the same thing, but Shoko rebukes him saying Gojo isn't such a softie. Higuruma notices that Gojo has switched the conditions of the inside and outside of the domain, meaning that Gojo's barrier is now strong against the attacks from the outside. Kusakabe whines wondering how can Gojo switch up the conditions of his domain so easily. So it's hard to tell from the leaks here exactly what's going on. I know it kind of explains it, but it still doesn't make a ton of sense. So once we get a full translated version, it might make a little bit more sense exactly what's going on here. Apparently Gojo's changing the conditions of his domain somehow to envelop the entirety of Malevolent Shrine. In some of the leaked panels, it looks like it's expanding a lot farther than it did the first time. How he's doing this, again, it's not explained too well here, but it is also possible that we're going to be following the same trend as we have been these past couple chapters, where things happen and then the next chapter is when things actually get explained. The important thing is that it seems like whatever Gojo's doing right now is keeping the Unlimited Void from being destroyed again. Sukuna's punches start to land on Gojo. Sukuna can use domain amplification simultaneously while using domain expansion. Like, this dude is on a completely different level. That's something that I didn't think was possible. More than likely not possible, but just something that only he can do and maybe Gojo. He's straight up keeping his domain expansion open and also using domain amplification at the same time to cancel out Gojo's curse technique. Well, Gojo's like, who cares? But then he realizes that Sukuna's must hit effect from the shrine also seems to be turned off. And on top of that, it seems like Sukuna's just trying to throw hands with Gojo right now, keeping the close quarter combat going while the domain's open. And Kenjaku actually explains why Sukuna's doing this now. He explains that the people who don't get affected by Gojo's infinite void are Gojo himself and the person he's touching. Sukuna kept in touch with Gojo to survive the void and got rid of his must hit effect inside the domain to enhance attack power outside Gojo's domain. Thus, and then we see a panel of the Unlimited Void being shattered yet again by Sukuna. So Gojo's doing impossible stuff to get the upper hand on Sukuna, and then Sukuna does the exact same right back at Gojo. Due to all that, Gojo once again loses the domain battle against Sukuna. Yuji wonders why, and Kusakabe realizes that Sukuna might have also changed the condition of his domain like Gojo did. Kashimo comes forward and says if Gojo dies, he'll just go out there and take Sukuna on himself. But to everyone's surprise, Sukuna's cuts aren't too deep. Kusakabe tells everyone that it's due to Falling Blossom Emotion, a secret anti-domain technique that's passed down in the big three families. Gojo tells Sukuna he had learned it when he was a kid but hadn't used it so far. So there's a lot to unpack there. Apparently Sukuna did the exact same thing Gojo did and changed the conditions of his domain, expanded it out further, did whatever he needed to do in order to destroy the Unlimited Void again. Again, we'll probably get a better explanation as to how Gojo and Sukuna are both doing this once we get some full translations or possibly in the next chapter. But the more important thing that was said here was the reveal of the Falling Blossom Emotion, which I don't want to say is an ass pull or anything, but it's definitely something that we of course haven't heard of before and seems to be pretty convenient in helping Gojo in that particular situation. It doesn't seem like it's straight up plot armor for Gojo because it's not doing anything crazy, but pretty convenient time for this thing to get revealed, especially since Kusakabe Abe says that he learned it as a kid but hasn't used it since. Whatever though, it's Gojo, so it kind of makes sense, right? What I'm curious to see though is how this technique compares to the simple domain or hollow wicker basket or something. What properties make it different, and why is it so exclusive to only the 3 families? Well, Gojo once again uses his domain, but this time he expands it very largely. Kashimo says that Gojo's doing it to cover Sukuna's range. Higuruma says although it won't be destroyed from outside, it's useless if he loses inside. And in the panels we get, it looks like he's literally expanding Unlimited Void to several buildings, like covering several skyscrapers. So it's going out farther than we've ever seen the domain go, seemingly like a few city blocks actually, which is pretty insane. But as Higuruma says, it doesn't matter how big it is, if Gojo loses from the inside then it doesn't matter at all. Well, contrary to everyone's expectations, Gojo shrinks his domain range to the size of a little ball. And this is like the biggest shocker of the entire chapter because I have absolutely no clue what the heck Gojo's doing here. He somehow compressed him and Sukuna in his domain to the size of a ball, and we see that it's hovering in this crater where the domain was initially released. So I don't know about you guys, but like seeing this and considering that it seems like Gojo just straight up compressed him and Sukuna into the size of a ball, I think we're gonna be getting like a massive explosion next chapter or something from all the pressure, all the density in that small domain. But nonetheless, it's an absolute cliffhanger of an ending for this chapter. As I said at the top, it's not very clear who took the win in this chapter. They were both just going back and forth and using new techniques and enhancing their own techniques. So to me, 227 was kind of a draw. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Who do you think had the upper hand in this chapter? And make sure to subscribe because I will be doing a full chapter review as soon as we get a fully translated chapter. But that is it for this one, guys. Have an absolutely wonderful night or morning or whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next one.